A lot of folks called onto my show when this news broke, and they said, this black man is being attacked. Why does Trump get away with things and Mayor Eric Adams isn't? And I said, I understand that perspective. I don't believe Mayor Eric Adams is the greatest example of a black man being attacked in politics. But let's just start there to get that out of the way. What are your thoughts? I mean, because that comes from trauma, right? Trauma,
Yeah.
experiences, the whole bit. But what are your thoughts when you hear that narrative around Mayor Eric Adams?
There's so much there. Like there's so much to unpack. And I understand, right? Like we're starting from the general premise that the world and especially the law and the American law has different consequences for black people than it does for white people. And that's true. And I understand that that is generally true. Um that's a little different. It's a little different here, right? Because we're not talking about your average black like black person or poor black person that's usually railroaded and wound up in the criminal system. We are talking about people who are in positions of power and are abusing their authority to hurt their constituents, and their constituents, namely being us. And I mean by us, I mean not even New Yorkers, but I mean Black New Yorkers in particular. Eric Adams has had one of the most anti-Black administrations that we have seen in years. He has revived stop and frisk. He's revived units that were specifically disbanded for their disproportionate killings and beatings of Black people. He has stopped, he has covered up deaths at Rikers. He has stopped making the public aware of deaths at Rikers altogether. So this is not somebody that you should, this is very different in the first place. And second, to address it just substantively, it's also not true. It's also not true to say, okay, they're going, why is Trump get away with things? And Eric Adams, they're going after him. First of all, Eric Adams has more than 10 years, like a decade worth of corruption and scandals that he is being investigated for. And that is evidence, right? So Eric Adams has been getting away with scandals and crimes and accused of sexual assault and many of the same things Trump has in the last 10 years. More importantly, he and Trump are friends. They're cool. If you've seen Donald Trump's statements since Eric Adams has been indicted, he's like, oh, he's always said very nice things about me and I feel him and this and the next thing. So like while you're trying to like make this like opposite, this compare and contrast, they're actually on the same aisle of the fence. You know what I mean? So if you think, and then to build on that, they're actually being gone after by the same people. Donald Trump has in fact been criminally charged by DA Alvin Braggs, right? Before the federal indictment, I think it's important to know, before this federal indictment came in on Eric Adams, they have already, a DA Alvin Braggs and the Manhattan DA has already tried and convicted 7 different people in association with corruption with Eric Adams' administration. So this actually, the same way Donald Trump's people were being rounded up first before any charges came against him, the same thing is happening. So it's not true on any level.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to break that down. And like you said, I understand where it's coming from, but I don't think he's the greatest example of this. All right, so what do you think about the overall charges? What are some things that people need to know? It may sound confusing for some folks, but just break down the overall charges and what do you think this means? And I know you are abolitionist, so you are somebody. So where does your abolitionist mindset come in? Because if he's found guilty, he's facing serious jail time. So
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts on those two things?
The reason I'm an abolitionist is because I don't believe that the criminal system is designed to stop crime, and the reason I'm an abolitionist generally is because I believe the criminal system disproportionately and intentionally goes after poor black and brown people to fill the criminal system with them. That being said, I know that abolition is a dream of tomorrow, and we still have the system, and we don't yet have like the mechanisms in place to just abolish or be done with the system in its present, right? And I don't think the people that my abolition does not require me to go out to protect or I think defend or feel in any way to feel like I am dealing with a moral dilemma when the rich or the powerful are who find themselves in the criminal system because they usually don't, which is a reflection of why I don't believe in the system, right? So like Eric Adams or a powerful politician who has been found to participate in corruption at our expense is not somebody I am worried about with the system. That being said, for the
Exactly.
charges, it's very, listen, just generally, and I think everybody knows this, like you don't even have to be a lawyer just to know this, but so I'm going to say this as just a regular person. When the feds want you, the feds are going to have you. Like they
Mm,
like let's understand that. This is federal. Like this is not even,
federal.
yes, they don't come, they don't bring charges until they already have the case. They open up the indictment by saying by making it very clear they're not just prosecuting this man for or aware of his corruption and his wrongdoings insofar as his administration, but that this is a decade of overcorruption. They said that this corruption actually started from the moment he became Brooklyn Borough president. So they're not playing with him. And it's important to know this is one, the indictments that came to Eric Adams is not the end of it. That's probably just one of 5 different investigations that are happening in relation to his administration. So we're going to still see more charges. More charges are to come. And they've conducted, since he's been indicted, they've still continued to conduct more raids, more warrants. He's in deep stuff. So what they're basically arguing, and I think it's important for people to know, because I've seen a lot of like not lawyers online say things like, "Oh, this doesn't seem like a big deal," or whatever have you. You're wrong. Like it's very serious. Like he's not in a little bit of trouble. He is in a lot of trouble. Like politicians are not allowed. If you're wondering, oh, they can't take money from foreign governments? No, they cannot. Like, no, they cannot. They are not allowed. They are not allowed to do that. But in the case of Eric Adams, what they are alleging is that one, he misappropriated more than $10 million of public funds. He used the matching program and created a straw donor scheme. Let me explain what that means. There are a certain amount of funds that are put in to make sure, like, to help New Yorkers have more of a say in the political process, to make sure that corporations and politicians and all of these different people who we don't want to have undue influence are not the ones being able. There's a limit on how much money that they can put in, and there is a program specifically for matching public donations. Eric Adams and his administration are alleged to have committed fraud, right? Committed fraud and made false certifications to the government as though these were public donations. These are actually, they were making illegal donations, getting donations from people that they're not allowed to get them from, and then pretending that they were public funds to double them. And they basically did that up until $10 million of misappropriated public funds that were not from the public to support his campaign, right? So that's one. Two, he's alleged to not just Turkey. Turkey is the main one, but they allege to have a relationship with Turkey, China, and a few other countries that they're investigating, but specifically that he did kickbacks, like a series of kickbacks in order to get all these benefits, to be able to travel, to get money, to do all these different things. He did the bidding of Turkish government officials at the expense of New Yorkers. So what I think is really interesting is on the anniversary of like September 11th, the Turkish government had a building that they wanted completed, a skyscraper that was not, think about this, in New York, September 11th, what our safety is. The skyscraper was not up to code, and they wanted it to be done. So they told Eric Adams, and now is your time to be a friend of Turkey. He agreed that he has to put pressure on the FDNY in order to have the skyscraper that is not actually up to code be able to be, them say it's done, and it is. And he threatened to fire different employees of the FDNY if they didn't agree with this, right? So they have, like, it's insane. It's 57 pages of just bold face conspiring, making your staffers participate in this, telling them to delete, to hide. And it's just interesting to have a mayor that has spent the last 3 years telling us that he's cutting budgets. Think about this, right? He has spent the last 3 years cutting our budgets left, right, and center, stoking xenophobia, and telling New Yorkers that immigrants are the reason, migrants are the reason that you don't have the money for this, the money for that. All the while, he is conspiring with foreign governments to get extra money, to get benefits, to line his own pockets. And he is helping, like, increased numbers at Rikers. He's attacking bail reform. He is making sure that people, Black and brown, poor people, sit in Rikers for being accused of jumping the turnstile, things way, way, way lesser than the sheer hundreds of thousands of dollars he is found to have illegally obtained.
That train is never late. It's so funny. It's just
Yes.
that train. It's always on. And one thing I tell people is that New Yorkers don't play the games. Like, we've had Republican mayors, Democratic mayors, independent mayors. We will kick your ass out. I mean, look at what was the dude's name? Elliot Spitzer, the governor, kicked his ass out. Then who was the guy that replaced him? David Patterson. He had to leave because he had a little scandal. Like, New Yorkers aren't like these red states. We will kick. We will get out. It's time to go. But I want to talk about the immigration discussion for a minute, because I agree with you. I've been seeing a lot of scapegoating. I've been in the New York area since '98. I remember when it was bad. Yeah. I mean, I remember, this may shock some of y'all, walking through Times Square and you basically saw sex shops on every single corner. I remember the homelessness. I remember the violence, but they weren't blaming immigrants back then.
Yeah.
I guess they just I guess there was a Governor Greg Abbott and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, so they
You picked
didn't
the
find an immigrant
convenient
scapegoat.
because they were blaming black people then, but
Right.
the black mayor can't like
That's
has to pick a different group, a different marginalized group than black people to do that too. And it's funny though, because even though his policies quietly very much so hurt black people and do pick black people, right? What he says to us, what he says to the public, as though he has to pretend I'm your black man, I'm your black man. He goes after migrants because it's his way. It's the way the system and your oppressors and the powers that be make you hate other marginalized people rather than look at them, rather than say to yourselves, why are our New York City officials, in the same time that Eric Adams was signing historic new deals, that's how much money he gave. They had never given the PBA, the Police Benevolent Association, NYPD, as much money as they've given, as Eric Adams has given them. Those, by his own words, a historic new deal. No one, instead of questioning, how is it possible that he can do that? They have the money and the funds for that. And they're not only not giving to New Yorkers, you're not receiving as a Black New Yorker, as a Latino New Yorker, as a disabled New Yorker, as a homeless New Yorker. You're not receiving any of these things. But yet he's going to tell you that, oh, the reason those things aren't happening is because of migrants, these immigrants, these people are coming to take from you. And rather than you say to yourself, wait, I never had it for them to
in
take.
the
And if I never had it, it's because they never gave it. You just you get distracted because it's easier to blame the migrant or to blame the person that you think is just as marginalized, if not more marginalized than than actually assess and come to terms with the fact that this person that you've elected and that's sitting up there with his earring and telling you how cool he is and he's the hip hop mayor and he's the black mayor is not looking out for your best interests.
Well, and the sad thing is, from a history lens, some of us, not all, are doing the same thing poor white folks would do to us.
Yes.
That they would try to convince the rich white guy at the top, trying to convince poor white folks it's not because of us you're poor. It's because they got this goddamn 1964 Civil Rights Act. That's what it is. And then poor white folks fall for it, and now we're falling for it. It's sad. But let me ask you this. I do think, and if I'm wrong, correct me. I do think there is an immigration problem.
Mhm.
Uh, do you agree there is an immigration problem in New York? Not that they're the cause of crime or violence or poverty, but what is the fix? Because I thought, again, if I'm wrong, correct me. I thought it was fair for Mayor Eric Adams to say, let them have work authorizations. Let them
Mhm.
have work. They can't freaking work. They're trying to work. They can work. So I thought that was a fair critique. I don't believe this is
That
happening to
would
him
have been
because
a
of Biden.
fair. So this is
Okay,
the
go
thing,
ahead.
right? And I
Break
say
it
this
down. Break it
as an
down.
immigrant, right? Like as an
Okay.
actual immigrant here with immigrant status. The problem is not immigrants. The problem is Americans' immigration system. And it's interesting to
Mm,
me that I never hear it framed that way. 16 years in this country, and everyone is always
mm,
talking about immigrants and immigration, and Americans do not understand or know their immigration system whatsoever, right? So yeah, the
mm,
problem is not that there is an immigration problem. The problem is that the US has an immigration system that intentionally makes it so you cannot get authorization to work. You have no path to citizenship. You have no path to stay. They make it incredibly difficult. Would you believe that I am 16 years in this country? I'm an attorney here. I'm not a US citizen. Think about that, right? Like, and I have no path to US citizenship, right? So imagine people just getting here as asylum seekers when the entire, not only is the federal government, but every state governor and mayor you could find is just stoking all of this like anti-immigration rhetoric, right? It would be different if Eric Adams said, this is ridiculous on behalf of the United States that you have this kind of immigration system where these immigrants are coming here and they're not able to work and do what they need to do because they want to, like they clearly want to, so they can
yeah.
support themselves. And this is a problem for me. That is different. What Eric Adams said was, these black and brown immigrants are coming to destroy your neighborhoods. Look around your neighborhoods, it's going to be completely gone. Get rid of the right to shelter, something that New York has had in a city. Think about this. If you think the United States brands itself falsely to the world as a melting pot, New York City truly is that melting pot. Like this is the city of immigrants, right? So
Absolutely.
imagine what he did instead was say, I'm going to be the antithesis of everything that this city is. I want to get rid of your right to shelter laws. I want to get rid of the avenues of protections that this city filled with immigrants and one of the most diverse cities in the world has put in place to protect these people. I want to help. I already recognize a bad immigration system, and I want to then take away even the couple of protections that they had. Very different.
Did you ever hear from Mayor Eric Adams or his team after the Breakfast Club interview? anything.
He text the day of he had texted me to tell me, let me see, I'll tell you exactly what he said. No, I almost listen, I almost when he got indicted, listen, I was this close to texting him. I'm like, boy, I bet you hope you run into an abolitionist now, hey.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, he had texted me, hey sister, great seeing you today. This is my private phone. By the way, what is the meaning of your name? And I answered him, and then he sent me the yellow prayer hands. And I thought that was funny because I never seen a black person not
Right,
change.
right. You always got to change the skin tone.
Yeah, I said, oh, I said, I see what you are. I know what you are.